Hello, and welcome back. Let me tell you, I've always had a soft spot for Britt. She arrived on our screens with that sharp tongue and those guarded eyes, a woman who had built walls so high you wondered if anyone would ever climb them. Over the years, she showed us pieces of her heart, flawed, yes, but real, and I came to believe she genuinely wanted to protect the people she cared about. Taking Rocco, though, after the shooting that left the whole town reeling, crossed a line that even I struggled to defend at first. She told herself it was for the boy's own good, that the psychological scars from the violence would be too much for a child his age. I sat there, remote in hand, thinking, Britt, honey, you're not protecting him. You're stealing his chance to heal with the people who love him most. And yet, as the days unfolded and we watched her drive further and further from town, I began to understand the fear that drove her. How many of us, at our age, have made choices we thought were shielding our loved ones, only to realize later that we were really shielding ourselves from the pain of watching them suffer? Dante and Lulu's reaction tore me apart. They had just begun to stitch their relationship back together after so many years of heartbreak years we had all lived through with them. The frantic searches, the sleepless nights, the way their voices cracked on the phone calls they made to each other, it felt too raw, too close to the kind of quiet desperation many of us have known when a child slips out of reach. Their newly mended bond started to fray almost immediately under the weight of blame and fear. I found myself talking back to the screen more than once. Don't let this pull you apart again. You've already lost so much time, but that's the beauty and the cruelty of General Hospital. It refuses to hand us easy answers. Instead, it shows us how grief can twist even the strongest love into something unrecognizable. I wondered, as I'm sure you did, whether their marriage could survive another fracture. My own feeling, after all these decades of watching, is that it can, but only if they choose to lean into the very thing Britt tried to run from, facing the pain together instead of apart. Then there was Gio. That young man carries guilt the way some people carry an old coat, heavy, familiar, impossible to set down. He blamed himself for not stopping Britt that day, and I felt every ounce of that regret because I've watched him grow up on this show, watched him try so hard to do the right thing, running into the right thing wasn't clear. When he set out alone to find them, I was proud of him and terrified for him all at once. The remote hideout where he finally caught up to Britt and Rocco was the kind of place that feels suspended in time. No cell service, no easy escape, just the three of them and the storm inside Britt's mind. She had begun to unravel, her protectiveness turning into something darker, more paranoid. She saw threats everywhere, convinced that returning Rocco would only expose him to more harm. I sat forward in my chair, heart pounding, asking myself the same question the show was forcing us to ask. Could Gio reach her before everything shattered completely? What happened next surprised me in the best possible way. Gio didn't storm in with force or anger. He spoke quietly, patiently, reminding Britt of the boy's need for his parents, for stability, for the chance to be a normal kid again. And somehow, miraculously, he got through. Rocco came home. The relief I felt was enormous, the kind that makes you exhale after holding your breath for weeks. Yet the story didn't let us rest easy. Almost immediately, we began to see the new obsession taking shape, the one that has me both fascinated and worried for what comes next. Rocco's return didn't end the danger, it simply shifted it. Now the threat is coming from Cullum, a man driven by revenge, who has set his sights on the boy as a way to settle old scores. The new shocks the writers are layering in feel relentless. And I'll be honest with you, I sometimes lamented they're pushing the Falconeri family toward a breaking point that feels almost cruel. Still, I find myself defending the direction they've taken. Britt's overprotection, though extreme, was rooted in something understandable. The terror of losing another child to the violence that has haunted Port Charles for so long. Gio's intervention reminded me why I keep watching this show still believes in redemption, in the power of one person's steady voice to pull someone back from the edge. And the looming confrontation with Cullum? It forces us to confront a truth many of us have learned the hard way. Protecting the people we love sometimes means letting them walk back into the world, even when it scares us half to death. I don't always agree with every twist the writers choose. There have been times I've shouted at the television that they're making Britt's unraveling feel too sudden, too convenient for drama. But then I remember the long arc of her character, the losses she's endured, the secrets she's kept, and I see how this storyline honors that history even while challenging it. What I love most, though, is how the show keeps asking us to look at family not as something perfect and polished, but as something messy and resilient. Dante and Lulu are learning, slowly, that healing isn't a straight line. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and sometimes a sudden sprint sideways when a new threat appears. Rocco himself, caught in the middle of all this adult chaos, is being written with a quiet strength that feels true to the children we've watched grow up on General Hospital over the years. He's not just a plot device. He's a boy who will carry the echoes of this ordeal into adulthood, the way so many of us carry our own childhood memories of family storms. I keep thinking about the larger question this arc raises for all of us who have followed the show for decades. When does protection become harm? Britt believed she was saving Rocco from trauma, yet her actions created new wounds that will take years to mend. Gio's success in bringing the boy home proves that sometimes the bravest thing is to trust others with the people we love. And now, with Cullum circling, the writers are forcing us to consider whether the Falconeri family can survive yet another storm without losing the fragile peace they've only just reclaimed. My heart tells me they will, because General Hospital has always been about survival, about picking up the pieces after the explosion, the kidnapping, the betrayal, and finding a way to keep loving anyway. You and I, sitting in our living rooms with our cups of tea or coffee, have seen this town through so many crises. We've watched marriages end and begin again, watched children grow into adults who make the same mistakes we once made, watched heroes fall and villains find unexpected grace. This current storyline, with all its heartbreak and hope, feels like a love letter to that endurance. It reminds me why I still tune in every day, even when the plot feels a little wilder than I'd like. Because at its core, General Hospital is still telling the story of ordinary people trying, failing, and trying again to protect what matters most. And as long as it keeps doing that, I'll keep watching, keep cheering for Dante and Lulu, keep hoping Britt finds her way back to the light, and keep believing that young Rocco and all the children like him will somehow come through the fire stronger than before. At our age, many of us know exactly how that kind of forced return feels. It isn't just the legal trouble or the stares from old neighbors, it's the deeper ache of being pulled back into a world you tried so hard to leave behind. Britt's eyes, once fierce, now look exhausted and defeated. I found myself talking to the screen the way I sometimes do after all these decades. Couldn't they have let her stay gone, even if only for a little while longer? The writers have made her illness, the one she inherited from the Phazon line, impossible to look away from. Every tremor, every forgotten word, every moment her body refuses to obey reminds us that time is running out. If they had simply left her in that quiet hideaway, the disease might have taken its course on her own terms, away from the spotlight. Instead, poor Charles is making her suffer twice as much for daring to care about anyone but herself. What troubles me most is how this return turns Britt's future into the newest obsession of the entire storyline. Cullum refuses to let her go. He still needs her medical expertise, her unwilling link to her father's twisted legacy, and her knowledge to finish the shadowy Phazon project he's been planning. It's a cruel kind of logic. The very illness that is destroying her is also the reason he keeps her alive. I sat there watching, coffee forgotten in my hand, wondering if the show is being too harsh or simply honest. After everything, Britt has already lost her mother, her brother, pieces of her own heart. Does she really have to become the pawn in yet another revenge scheme? Part of me wants to argue with the writers. Couldn't they have given her a quieter exit? Some small measure of peace far from the hospital walls that have defined her? Yet I also understand why they chose this path. General Hospital has never been gentle with its characters, and that's one reason I've stayed all these years. It shows us that love and protection don't always come with happy endings. Britt risked everything to shield young Rocco from the trauma of that shooting, only to find herself broken in a new and intimate way. Her hands shake more noticeably now. Her confidence slips at the worst moments. You can see the fear flash across her face when she realizes the disease is winning another round. Still, that stubborn spark remains the same one that made her believe she could outrun her own bloodline. I find myself rooting for her not because I expect miracles, but because I want her to keep whatever dignity she has left while she fights. Dante and Lulu, of course, are torn between gratitude and lingering anger. Their son is home, yet the danger has simply changed shape. Gio carries his own quiet guilt, wondering if bringing Rocco back somehow sealed Britt's fate. The whole Falconeri family feels fragile again, and the question the show keeps asking us is the same one many of us have faced in real life. When does protection cross the line into harm? Britt thought she was saving the boy. Instead, she created new wounds that will take years to heal. Cullum's demands only tighten the knot, forcing her to confront the Faison shadow whether she wants to or not. I'll admit I don't always agree with every choice the writers make. Sometimes the suffering feels relentless, almost too much for one woman to bear. But then I remember why we've all stayed loyal for so long. This show has never promised easy resolutions. It promises truth, the messy, painful, stubbornly hopeful kind. Britt's torment, her illness, and Cullum's cold calculations are all part of that truth. Her future may feel like a dark cloud hanging over Port Charles right now, yet I still believe there's room for one more act of grace. Maybe it comes from an unexpected friend, or from the family she tried to protect, or even from within her own failing body.